Hey everybody, we're back again for another off-season recap video, and today we're going to be looking at the Washington Capitals. So, Washington is always a team looking to contend in the Eastern Conference, but each of the past 2 years, they've had some very disappointing playoff exits. This offseason, they've certainly made a few changes, but most of them, if not all of them, are really depth-related, and it's not like they're making major, significant changes to their lineup in any way. So before we get into it, I just ask that you please subscribe if you are new and hit that thumbs up button if you haven't yet. Both of those things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. But let's get into it here. Looking at Washington, like I said, first round playoff exits each of the past 2 years, pretty much embarrassed by the New York Islanders this past playoffs. And they go into this offseason with, definitely some moving parts and some guys coming out, some new guys coming in. And a lot of them were depth related, however, with the exception of maybe the goaltending switch. But they're not a team that's out there making big splash moves, and I think their salary cap situation has a lot to do with that. But let's take a look at what the Capitals have done this offseason. So, obviously, their biggest addition is goaltender Henrik Lundqvist, coming in from the New York Rangers after being bought out by them. And they needed to bring in Henrik Lundqvist because they lost Braden Holtby, who's now signed with the Vancouver Canucks. They've also brought in depth defensemen Justin Schultz, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Paul Ledoux to try and help with their depth on the back end. And just, these are guys that will help fill out that lineup in that roster as far as the defense core goes. And that's because they lost Radko Gudas. They've also lost defenseman Connor Hobbs. And from their forward group, they've lost forwards Ilya Kovalchuk and Travis Boyd. So it's a lot of depth, guys. The goaltending switch, I think, is obviously one of the bigger moves this offseason for Washington. Holtby moving on. Always tough to lose a Stanley Cup winning goaltender like that. But they bring in Henrik Lundqvist on a 1-year deal to go alongside Ilya Samsonov, who certainly looks like the future in goal for Washington. And they just needed a veteran guy to kind of be a tandem with him and help out the young goalkeeper. Other than that, it's just a bunch of depth. I mean, Justin Schultz, Van Riemsdyk, Ledoux. They're solid bottom pair defensemen. Maybe Ledoux's more of a 6-7 type guy. Schultz a few years ago would have been a huge upgrade to that D-core, but at this point with all the injuries, and he's really struggled the past couple years with Pittsburgh, Justin Schultz is not the player that he used to be. And Radko Gudas moves on. Ilya Kovalchuk, Travis Boyd, a couple of depth forwards that come out of the lineup that they haven't really replaced. And Connor Hobbs, more of an AHL defenseman, but a guy who is an organizational depth piece on the back end. Paul Ledoux kind of replaces Connor Hobbs, I would say. But that is what the Washington Capitals have done this offseason, and it's been an interesting offseason for Washington, to say the least. But for this video, I brought in a special guest, longtime subscriber and very, very big Washington Capitals fan, DMV Sportsnet. You guys see him on the channel all the time. He's going to give his opinion now on the Caps and what they've done this offseason. So DMV, take it away.
How's it going, Off the Wall Hockey viewers? I'm Alex from the DMV Sportsnet. I would like to thank John from Off the Wall Hockey for having me on this video, for me to talk about the Washington Capitals. So, what are my thoughts about the offseason? As a Caps fan, I do not like the offseason that they made. I think that they should have gone better, signing better players from forwards. They focus on defensemen, which I do not know why. You have players from defense, from Hershey, that are NHL ready. I'm talking about Lucas Johansson. I'm talking about Alexander Alexiev. I understand why, because they need player, they need the top prospect players from defense that are to develop one more year and be NHL ready. I can reassure with that. But the most important thing is forwards. They did not done anything with the forwards. Now we're moving on to AHL players who are not NHL ready. It's gonna be like a team that does not have anything at the bottom six. Now you're pretty much gonna be a third place team or a wild card team. like if they went better on the forwards, I would say like signing Craig Smith, Vlad Nemestikov, Matthias Janmark, and Carl Soberg. Those will be the 4 options. If I was a Caps GM, but like you're pretty much all signing AHL players, and like I said from the playoff review, I picked the Caps finishing third because how the team has lost many depth in the last off season. Like and the 2 off seasons ago when we lost Jay Beagle. So like now we're finishing third in my opinion. Let's talk about the trades and the draft. It's gonna be all in one. Gain the 21st pick or 22nd pick. Gain Hendrix Lapierre. That is a good pick. Yes, he had some injury issues with Chicoutimi, but I can reassure that he will not have any injury issues when he's with Washington because Washington is a playoff team. Hendrix Lapierre can handle with a playoff team, in my opinion. If we did not draft Hendrix Lapierre, I would say Maverick Bork, Ozzy Weisblatt, Jake Neighbors, and all that. Like the players that I mentioned. If we did not draft Lapierre, I can say that like they will have a high impact with Washington, so that like they can like develop more and have a bright future. But I can say Hendrix Lapierre has the brightest future, has the highest late player future in my opinion. So if I would rate this offseason for the Capitals, I would rate it a 4 because how they signed AHL players, they should have gone better. But the one satisfaction of me is signing Henrik Lundqvist. So yes, thank you, John, for having me on this video. I really do appreciate it. And go Caps! Woo!
I want to give a huge thank you to DMV for coming on the channel. I always love having fans of certain teams come on to talk about their team and kind of give their own perspective. So really, really appreciate that, DMV Sportsnet. And I have to agree with him. Now, I may not think that Washington's offseason was as bad as DMV does, but I really don't think they've done anything that makes them that much better. I don't think the Capitals are a team that's really gotten better this offseason. I look at a lot of their moves, and I think it's kind of been a wash. It's a lot of patch jobs with that roster. I mean, you look at the goaltending situation, they bring in Lundqvist because Holtby's gone now. That's a 1-year patch job. That's a Band-Aid. Now, obviously, they're hoping that Samsonov is the goalie of the future and will be the starter and will be, a really good young goaltender. And with what we saw from him last year, he certainly looks like he has the potential to do that. But bringing in Lundqvist is at this stage in his career is just a 1-year Band-Aid for, to have a good tandem there. But this is likely Henrik Lundqvist last year, and what are they going to do next season in goal? That's just, they figure that out for 1 year, but they've got to figure out a longer-term solution than that. And then you look at the defense moves that they made. Justin Schultz at this point, I am not very high on. Back in his prime with the Penguins, he was a very, very good offensive defenseman. But with the injuries he's had and the way that he's played the past couple of years in Pittsburgh, Justin Schultz is a player on a steep decline. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, he's a good 5'6" type guy, but again, depth player. And Paul Ledoux, more of like a 6'7" type guy. They really already have a Paul Ledoux and Nick Jensen, and now they just added another one to that decor. I really, again, I think these are kind of Band-Aid type moves. They're not anything that makes this team significantly better. And like DMV talked about, they didn't really do anything to address the forward group. They've lost a third liner in Kovalchuk. They've lost a fourth liner in Boyd. And they really, didn't bring any forwards in. So they're going to be heavily relying on some guys to make that jump from the AHL to the NHL. And you really don't know how that's going to go. That might go fine, and they might contribute and be solid and be good depth players, or that might not go so well. There's a lot of questions here with the Washington Capitals, but I think the big thing is that it's pretty clear Washington is a team that's on the somewhat of a decline and going to be significantly declining soon. They've had their run, they've had their heyday, and their core is all in their 30s now, and this is a team that the window is closing. And I'm not saying, I don't think their window is completely closed yet. I still think they have another year or two where they can be contenders, but it's closing. And you look at, they still have Ovechkin playing at a very high level. They've got Backstrom and Kuznetsov down the middle. They've got Oshie. They've got Wilson, who's become one of the best power forwards in the league. They've still got a lot of good pieces there up front. They've got John Carlson on the back end, but that window is tightening. And you've got Oshie, Ovechkin in their mid-30s. You've got Backstrom getting older. Kuznetsov's still fairly young, but still he's pushing 30. John Carlson's 30. So it's not quite over yet for the Washington Capitals, but it's coming to an end here, and there's going to be a significant decline in the near future for Washington. I think they're in a very similar situation to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Maybe not as bad as Pittsburgh, but I think they're getting there. They're another year or two. We're going to be looking at Washington the same way we're looking at Pittsburgh right now, I think. And I just think it's headed downhill, and that's the way it goes in the NHL. They've been a consistent playoff team for the past decade plus. They've been a Stanley Cup contender. They've won a Stanley Cup back in 2018, and that's the way it works. You're a good team for so long, and then you end up getting pushed back to the bottom, and you have to rebuild again. And I think that's coming for Washington as their players get older. They're relying heavily on a very older core. And I just think the window is closing. It's not closed yet, but it's coming in the near future. In this offseason, they really didn't do anything to change that. And I agree. They won the division last year, but I agree with DMV that I look at them this year much more as like a third or fourth place team rather than a first place team. I think we're really going to start to see signs of that decline. We've already seen it in the playoffs the past couple of years. Washington just hasn't been the same in the playoffs. But I think we're going to start to see it in the regular season as well, where they're maybe more of a third-place type team than a first-place team. And I just think that the day is coming where Washington isn't going to be that powerhouse team in the East anymore. And it's getting here sooner and sooner and sooner with each year that goes by. So that's my opinion on Washington. I think, overall it's been kind of a patch job offseason for the Capitals. They're trying to keep themselves in contention for at least another year or two, but after that, I think we're going to see, a sharp decline and a rebuild, or at least a retooling is going to need to happen with the Capitals. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, links to our Patreon, merchandise store, and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.